Okay, here we are. Teacher quality for hopefully our last one of the school year. We're going to start with reviewing the budget. Nicole, I know you sent that out to everyone. If you want to let them know of any major changes or how we're looking going into the summer.
So everything is updated on there. It's pretty consistent. We're looking good like we were before, with the unspent amount still approximately the 323,000, just because we budgeted what we thought we'd need for the year, and then the expenses and everything is tracking pretty close. The instructional purchase services, we haven't had a lot come out of, but we haven't, as you know, we've held on that HRS, but we have buildings that are going to be doing that. So those costs are going to be coming and are listed at the very bottom, but that will roll into next year, probably when we get that bill. Otherwise come out when you guys are, done with school for the year in June. But just know, I guess Laura and I went through all of this. We didn't see anything big in any large differences. This is the money that we had planned for. And so far, all of those contracts and those alignments will probably equate to the same thing. And we should have that 323,000 or a little more to play with and roll with the HRS conference, if the group still wants to do that, hopefully next year.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions?
One other quick thing, that ASCD contract for professional learning, some of that we thought we'd utilize more this year. We have some more costs coming out, but a lot of that will roll into next year, and we're just going to have to figure out how we're going to use that, just so you guys know. If you have any ideas, let us know.
I thought of something the other day. We used to have our PE seminars during the school year once a week, and then that wasn't approved anymore. So we haven't had that for years. And then Grant Wood used to have a few more workshops than they do. But if he used to be a Cedar Rapids teacher. Now he's with Linmar. He is part of one of the national curriculum and one of the groups that comes around and does really good workshops. If we could get them to come out, could we do TQ for something like that if we had a bunch of PE teachers interested?
We've done that sort of thing in the past. We haven't done it recently because of our budget being less. But I think,
well, that's what I kind of meant. Do we have, if I would pursue something like that, is it something our budget could maybe support or not? Because if not, then I'm not even going to look into it.
Right. I think the question would be for the whole team of if we allow one group to do that, then we need to allow other groups to do that. And so it's not necessarily just do we have enough money to have that group do it, but do we have enough to have other groups having that same opportunity?
Right.
What do you think of far as a cost? Is it a cost of him coming? Or is it a cost of teachers attending, or what are you just thinking?
Well, it might be him coming, but it might be him coming and presenting, but I just didn't even know if they'd allow us to do that. If they don't allow us to do that, I'm just not even check it out. I haven't checked it out much.
Right. I'm just wondering if it's something you want to talk with John Rice about, or the PE facilitators to say, here's someone who would be really good to do some PL for us on one of our curriculum connections days. Is there a way we can get and then use the money through the curriculum fund, but it wouldn't be paying everybody. It would just be paying him if he needs a sub or something to get out of Linmar.
Okay, sounds good. I might check it out.
So I think that would be more reasonable.
Okay. Thanks. All right. I think that's not really a direct budget question, but
right.
My mind. Okay.
Thanks. Any other questions about the budget or what it's looking like or where we're at with that? Just a reminder for me, Nicole, this budget goes through June 30th. And then July 1 is when the new budget starts, but we usually don't get our amount until like October or something, right? Because it's based on the enrollment.
Correct. Usually around November, actually, we'll get new allocation.
Okay. So it looks like we have money to get us through until the new allocation comes, which is nice for that carryover.
Totally agree.
All right. Well, if there's no other questions, there's no reason for us to sit there then. The next thing we were going to talk about is professional learning plan. Something that had come up to me and that Nicole and I discussed a little bit, what we're looking to next year and our Fridays and what Fridays would be as far as PLC time or Fridays being PL time, because I've heard different teachers from different buildings discussing this and wondering what that's going to look like. So, Nicole, do you want to share the plan? I forgot I needed to be taking notes too. So now I'm going to start taking notes. Do you want to share what that plan is looking like at this point and see if that's the same that people are hearing in their buildings?
Sure. And I have Cynthia in the other room that can jump in here. She's finishing up the last meeting. So the plan is that Fridays is for PLC time. That doesn't mean, I know many buildings take like 30 minutes to maybe get people going and then they break out and have PLC time. The high school, the message has looked a little bit different, I think, because next year they're moving to block scheduling. So now instead of the 45-minute opening or prep, it's now 90 minutes. So they've talked about, and I don't think this is finalized yet, PLC time potentially like every other day in the other half of that. So some days you'd have that 90 minutes open, but some days you'd have PLC 45 and the other 45 you'd have your prep or your planning. So still working through that. That also meant that on Fridays they talked about having more, here she is, oh good, of the PL happening at that point in time. So I'm going to let you guys understand the middle school and elementary priority is to get PLC time in, but there still would be administrators working with the staff and possibly having that 30-minute sync up, right, before everybody splits and goes their ways. In addition to the PLCs still meeting throughout the week, which is happening, I think, in all the buildings. And then you heard me preface the high school, and I'm going to pass it to Cynthia.
Hi, Cynthia.
Hi. I'm not sure what.
Oh, I thought you could hear. So
No,
just talking about the PLCs and the Friday, I explained the block scheduling and how that PLC, you talked about potentially every other day, 45 minutes of that PLC is getting together. That's where we're at. Sorry.
Yep. So with the AB block schedule, really making sure that we are strategically planning for the professional learning community time. So the administrators at this point are setting up the PLC groups because they have to do that because you have to align your prep periods then on one of the two A day or B days. So let's say A day is my aligned prep period with the rest of the ELA content team. That means on A days for 45 minutes of my 90-minute prep, we are in PLC at a minimum. On B days, then I may not be aligned with the rest of the content team because of scheduling, things like that, and that I would have full prep time. And then, so at minimum, teachers would be meeting in PLCs twice a week. And that doesn't count the Friday afternoon. And so then Friday afternoon can be used for professional learning time that can be responsive to the needs of the PLCs, either specifically to content areas, maybe specifically to individual teacher needs, or it can be full staff. And there may be times where Friday afternoons need to be additional PLC time for the week. I think, as you all know, depending on what's going on at different points in the year, it could be used either way. Teams are also thinking about on those Fridays, making sure that they're working on a plan to support the rest of the goals. So around equity work, curriculum instruction work, teaching strategies in a block specifically tied to, our NASOT elements. And so really trying to think about how do we strategically place those on Friday afternoons, but also leave us enough flexibility that as coaches are supporting PLCs, if there's something specific that needs work done on that Friday afternoon, that we have the flexibility to do that. And so ask me other questions you have, because I'm not sure what all background info. And I will say, I should know, hi Gail, because I met with Dan at Metro, and Metro has a different facilitation plan that they're looking at because of the schedule and the work that they do naturally with the programming there. So just wanted to put that out, that really when I'm talking about the 3 large comprehensive high schools in aligning that AB day, Metro has a different block schedule look that they'll be doing, which is appropriate for our alternative programming there.
I think the explanation you and Nicole gave was good for how that could possibly look at a high school level. I think overall the concerns that I've heard over the years has been that when we decided to change the calendar and add Fridays in as every Friday PL time, that was going to be PLC, and that isn't necessarily how all of our buildings do it. And so some do their only PL then, and then they do PLC at another time. And I think teachers were just feeling like this wasn't what it was supposed to be, and it's added one more morning to be used up because now we're doing PLC then. And so from a teacher quality standpoint of what the PL is going to be for our district, I believe our PL is the PLC model, and making sure we get back to doing that the right way. And so want to just focus and make sure that we have the same expectations across the system.
Yeah, I really do hope it is eventually felt like a lift of the burden of trying to figure out how do we fit in PLCs and how do we fit in professional learning, with not having any opportunities really for PLCs to meet outside of that Friday afternoon time at the high school level. It did not work well because so many of those Fridays got compromised by so many other things that ended up needing to also be layered in there.
Right.
And I agree, the vehicle to really support everything else we do is through the professional learning community. And so I certainly can honor the fact that looking at this seems like, whoa, I'm going to be in PLC every other day. But the way we're planning it, and then once I think staff's able to get in and start doing the work, all of a sudden you have a community coming together to help solve problems and support one another in how we serve kids, which is something at the high school level that's so rare to find because of our content areas and our schedules. But that's our greatest hope. So I do hope it lifts it. And then Friday afternoons truly are that just in time PL, whether that be for the full staff, whether it be for particular PLCs, whether it be for individual groups of teachers, maybe it's a differentiated afternoon for what's needed when and where. But it becomes a protected time in a different way that we don't have to only rely on that for the only PLC time. There's some months on that calendar where high school PLCs were meeting once a month. And that's not enough time together to, first of all, build relationships, but secondly, actually look at data and solve problems together. So it's scary, but I think it's really exciting as to what it could do. But please ask questions and give us feedback because we want it to work well.
Does anyone have any questions for Cynthia?
So how would it look, Cynthia, at the elementary level?
I don't know the answer to that.
Nicole, how would it look at the elementary level?
Well, I think it would look similar to what you guys are currently doing. So you have, I've been in buildings that they have at least one time a week they're meeting as their PLCs, and then you also meet on that Friday. But again, I know administrators need a little time to touch base and typically sync up with staff for like 30 minutes at the start of things on Friday before that was my experience this past Friday, before they break into their PLCs. I'm also not saying, Pat, that, as you know, sometimes there are other things that happen. So we have family engagement and we have equity initiatives and we have some of those things, but hopefully most of the work that we're having people do, they can get with their PLCs and have conversations, review data, make instructional plans, all of that during that Friday time, because we again believe PLCs are the vehicle to quality instruction happening within all of your buildings. And we need to give you time and honor and value that as a leadership team.
Perfect. And the reason why I was asking Nicole was because this year, since I've been at Erskine, typically we were a 3-section building up until this year, but with only 2 special teachers a day. So we would only have that Friday chunk for PLC because we never had a common, prep. So this year it has been fantastic because we only have the 2 sections right now. And so it has worked out perfect. We've done it Wednesdays and we have it Fridays. And that's one thing that came up. Next year, we're planning to be back to 3 sections, so we won't have that. So this year we were just my teammate and I and a couple other teachers were saying this year was perfect. We had Wednesday and we had Friday and it worked out great. But this is the first year, being a 3-section building because of our specials that we don't have that. And then, it's also tricky because now we'll have, I don't know what the breakfast schedule will be, but, we always kind of had that morning time, which has kind of been cut. And so I was just kind of curious. I hope it could look the same. And I know it's not going to, but kind of the same as this year, because it was fantastic having a scheduled time that we knew Wednesday, you have your stuff ready for Wednesday and Friday, and so that's been that's been great, I think, for it. So
those are really good points, Pat. And I'm sure it worked fabulously well this year. And hopefully we can embed some of those things. I know all buildings and schedules, and Kent and Eric and teams just spent tons of time figuring out the special schedules. And those are challenging, as you know. So.
Right. Oh, no, I agree. And I'm not looking forward to another pandemic or anything. I really like the 2-section.
Fair enough.
Thank you very much.
One of the things we talked about, Nicole, I think you and I talked about some of the things we had done in the past. And one of those was paying for substitutes. And so maybe that's something that we would look at for buildings that have 3 sections, but only have 2 specials, is maybe for one day you have your sub cover for that 3rd section so that they can all do that during the week. Because I know that's been a hardship is trying to do that during the mornings. And then like Pat said, now you've got kids doing breakfast and all of that. If you can do it during one prep time out of the week, it is much, much better, more better, however that it should be said.
Totally agree. And I think that would be a great use of dollars, especially ESSER dollars and things that we're looking at potentially for the future. Another thing just on that, so this group is aware, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, Tanya, on the agenda. I don't think so. But tied to this, we're really looking at, we've had, some teacher voice in developing that curriculum, but we have a team right now trying to figure out there's been barriers because everybody hasn't had an opportunity to really get in and dissect those priority standards, those unit plans, those assessments. So we're planning to have not only some of those pre-service time to focus on that in addition to the October and January dates, but also giving groups. So at elementary, it looked different than secondary, but either grade levels and content levels, or just content levels, those teachers' times where we could planfully get a sub and identify dates early on. So have that schedule done by summer, find subs so those teachers can work. It'd be a larger PLC, but maybe all 1st grade or half of 1st grade teachers do math and they take a morning, and then the other half of 1st grade teachers that want to do the literacy piece do that, and we have subs for the day, and they just switch in the same building between the 2 sections, 3 sections, 4 sections, whatever it is. So just determining that, but really utilizing our staff so they have a good understanding of what the curriculum is. And then I think that ties into the NASAT standards as well and our identification of those those elements, I shouldn't say standards, those essential elements.
So
Thanks.
I don't know if so details at the high school level with this, and this comes from Anthony Muhammad's work around guiding coalitions with PLCs and so on. And for PLCs to work, having to have a clear understanding of answering questions 1 and 2. And so that means really spending some time on building consensus on what it is we want students to be able to know and do. And so needing to have this structure where for high schools, let's say chemistry teachers can be pulled for whether it be a half day or a day to look at the semester's worth of work. Or maybe it starts with a year. I mean, there's lots to work out there, but so that at the end of that day, all chemistry teachers across the district are leaving their understanding. These are our agreed upon priority standards. So we are guaranteeing that all Cedar Rapids students will know and understand and be able to demonstrate according to these priority standards. And then we have the rest of the standards also denoted, and even in some scope and sequence, and maybe even have an opportunity to get into expectations around unit templates. But knowing the autonomy in all of this is teachers at their individual schools and with their classes still are the ones that need to be pulling the appropriate strategies to use with a group of students sitting in front of them at the time. But with our PLC structure, knowing that we have built in every other day time where chemistry teachers come together and look at, well, what strategy do you use? Well, I use this one. Well, what did you use? Well, your students scored better on this. Why was that? And being able to go through that data, all of that has to happen for this to be lifted well, if we really want to see impact in student achievement. And so we've been thinking around, like, how do we structure that so that it's not a small group that's making decisions that's sent out to schools, and then our curriculum connection Fridays end up being debates in the afternoon as to what we agree with or not. But let's spend a day at the beginning of each semester coming to consensus around our boulders and our butterflies. What are the things that are our rocks that we are guaranteeing and feel confident this is our guaranteed and viable curriculum? And then how are we going to support one another in the process of creating these instructional plans to make sure that we can lean on each other, and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, or, oh my God, I had this success. You guys got to hear about this. So Anthony Muhammad refers to them as blue sheet days because you had to fill out a blue sheet to get a sub for the day. So whatever we end up calling these days, but our goal would be that we are able to pull a content team together, all the content area teachers from across all the schools, to spend, whether it's a half day or a full day, but when we leave there, we have consensus built and we have a plan moving forward as to what we're guaranteeing all of our students and all of our families that they should be able to expect.
Who do you think leads those teams?
So I think the content leads are extremely important in this work. Teaching and learning, the department will have certainly a role through it, but I also know that one of our barriers has been because we haven't had a system set up where administrators can also be part of the work and conversations, instructional coaches being part of the work and conversations. I would like to be in as many of those as possible, just again, to listen and learn and think about then as we make decisions, like how are we supporting the work that's, happening in the building. So I think initially it starts with OLL, really trying to look at like, how are we structuring this to make it feasible? But then the given day certainly would need to lean on content leads and coaches. I would expect, my greatest hope is that at least one administrator from each building is able to attend any of the days. So like a lot of the buildings have like this administrator supports the science department and this one supports the math department. And so I would expect that administrator to be there for several hours of the day so that they can learn and know what they're supposed to listen to and be able to observe for and then support in those conversations. With the instructional coaches, also having skills built around how to coach PLCs, the connection between content leads and instructional coaches is going to be critical moving forward. So whereas maybe if one's been specific to content, one's been specific to instructional strategies, those have got to be layered together better. And hopefully these days will provide that opportunity.
Yep. It'll be interesting because it's good for the teachers in those groups to be able to do their work together. But if they don't have someone leading that work, that might fail, but also it might fail if the teachers see it as a district top down, this is how it's going to be. Back in the day, before any of you admin that are in this call were in our district, we used to have a teacher leadership role that was PLC leaders, and those PLC leaders led the work as fellow colleagues from those buildings, and that helped because then they were there side by side teaching with you as well. So, but I know we'll figure it out. Any other questions about, or I guess questions or concerns that you're hearing? Cindy, I was wondering what you maybe hear from the middle school lens on PLCs and on Friday PL and what happens at Harding. Or
I was wondering about a couple of things. Are we going to be able to get back to having district teachers from, the same curriculum areas or whatever get together and meet? Because we haven't done that at all this year.
Yeah, there's going to
Yes.
be curriculum Fridays or curriculum
Yes.
connections again next year.
There will be again next year.
Yep.
Okay, that's good. And then I don't know, maybe this is brought up or questioned, and maybe Harding's schedule is just different, but I know I know it'll go back to middle school teachers wondering why we don't have time then again for teens. And if there's a way that they can get time to meet not only in their curriculum area, but in their grade level teams, because that's really tough. And they're having to divide that up between Fridays, and it's hard for them. And I think if they hear, the high schools have some time during the week and then Fridays, that's going to be interesting.
Yep. I just wanted someone to say it other than me. So
it really doesn't affect me that much, but I just know what will be said in the buildings, and I can hear it already. It's going to be, so the high school teachers get a 90-minute prep and middle school get 45 or 50. And I'm just telling you, I just know that's going to come up in the building. I just know it is.
So that's why we wanted you guys to know that here. We agree 100% is going to come up, and there are no conversations about doing middle school teaming due to the different staffing needs. I think everybody sees there's benefits to that as well, but just being honest and transparent, and thought we'd tell you guys. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of questions asked. Why do the high school staff get 90 minutes when nobody else does?
Okay.
It's not
And
a
at
good
least I
answer.
can say
It's the only answer I have.
at least I can say they're aware of it and they know. And yep. So, it's just one of those things. What do you do? But
Well, and you can always say that elementary teachers get 40 minutes and they teach everything. So, so it's one of those things where, I think you get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
It's well said, Pat.
I'll make sure that's in the notes.
You get what you get and you don't throw a fit.
Please quote me verbatim.
All right. So then the next thing that we were going to talk about was the plans for pre-service for 2021. Do we have that? I think I heard someone either in this meeting or my last meeting say that we don't really have the plan set for that yet. Do we have anything? Thanks, Cynthia. Do we have anything that we can discuss or share just from a professional learning standpoint with the TQ committee?
So the draft piece is 2 of those days will be that time with that curriculum work and your content areas and grade levels with guidance from a content lead, instructional coach, principal, all of the above. We're going to do in August, I think it's August 7th. Don't quote me on that date. Maybe it's the 2nd. But we have an executive council meeting with the PK-12 admin, and then the coaches are going to join us. I think it's actually the 2nd. And we're going to train everybody up, and Carla's shaking her head yes. So that the day of the 2nd, we're going to get everybody in sync, train people up so they can help with that pre-service for those teachers on those days. And 2 of those days will be a lot of that curriculum work. We're also going to make sure we give time for buildings to do the work that they need and teachers to be able to get organized and situated within their classroom environments. For some, it will be the first time, they're coming back. So as soon as we have more details on that, I can share that out with this group just to get some feedback. I don't think we necessarily need a meeting, but I would love your feedback on that. I think as our entire team, that would be beneficial if you guys would be willing to do that. We should have something honestly finished. We're plugging in some things on those dates before the school year's out. So still this month, if I could send that to you guys when we have more in there.
I see heads shaking, so I think people would appreciate that.
Perfect.
Just to be able to look it over and think about it through their lens. All right, then the next part is the evaluation update. We just wanted to give this committee, since one of our tasks is making sure evaluations are completed. Wanted just to give this group an update that we have a evaluation team that was called back together after a couple years break time. And that team has been working on setting the elements, how are we calling it, Nicole? The standard elements, not the standard elements, the top, what are we calling the 12? Just the
12 identified elements? What do we call it? We had better verbiage
I don't
than
know.
that.
I thought we had a name for them, but I can't think of it. Anyway, it's the 12 focus elements. Let's use focus that we're going to be using through our evaluation system.
The 12 priority elements.
Priority elements. There you go. And those priority elements are going to mostly be for our new teachers that are coming into the district, making sure that they are competent in those elements, and that's how they will get to stay in our district and how they will get their standard license, but also using those priority elements as a way for our veteran teachers to make sure they are doing their job and staying competent and at the level they need to be at. Those priority elements, Nicole, you don't happen to have that on a slide easily, do you?
No, but I can send it. I have it on the giant chart paper in front of me.
That doesn't seem easy to share, but
No.
hold on one second. I have the paper. If I hold that up like that, can you read it in is it going the right way?
It's going the right way, but it's hard to read it. But
Okay, so I'll just share with you then. So in the NASOT, there are the three areas, and we have decided on 12 elements from the 3 main not design areas, the 3 shoot, I can't think what they're called. Carla, help me. The 3 feedback, content, and context.
They're just called the categories.
Categories. There, I was close. So we have 12 from all of those, and we have 1 from each design area. The first area, providing and communicating clear learning goals, we have element 1 and 2. From assessment, we have element 5. And then going into content, we've looked at chunking content, structured practice sessions, engaging students in cognitive complex tasks. And then looking in context, under engagement, noticing when students are not engaged, establishing rules and procedures, demonstrating witness, and then under relationships, using verbal and nonverbal behaviors that indicate affection for students, demonstrating value and respect for reluctant learners, and then I forgot the reflecting on learning. So we will get a copy of this sent out to you, just so that you know and are aware of what those are, and how that group is kind of, the next steps of that group is to figure out what that means and what that does to change the evaluation system. Nothing will be changing for next year, specific to the 3-year process, but we will start thinking about how we're going to focus during those 3 years on different parts of those 12 elements. And just making sure that we're those priority elements are the ones that are getting us the most bang for our buck as far as helping our kids to learn. Anything I missed on that, Nicole? Okay, awesome. So then the last thing that we have for tonight is looking at some course approvals. I sent this to you earlier, so hopefully you guys had a chance to look at it and review. The first course, remember when we approve these, we just are approving the course topic, and then they will put the courses together. The first one is called Comprehensible Input for ELs, and then teaching ELs in the content area. So making sure that English learners are getting what they need in the content area from our gen ed teachers. This is being taught by Emily Gatto and Andrew Trout, and it can be used for any of our teachers, elementary, secondary, instructional coaches, counselors, or admin. I guess we'll just do a thumbs up because that's just going to be easier. Thumbs up if you think this is if you approve this as one of our topics.
Thumb up.
Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Pat. Thank you. And the next one is a Mindful Educator Part 2. I know because I put the classes in that Mindful Educator Part 1 has been very, very successful, and very many of our teachers have taken that and probably helped a little bit with their stress from this year. So Part 2 is put together by Julie Bradley and Andrew Trout. And it's just Part 2, Living Your Practice. You guys can read the description. The only other thing I just wanted to share with that, even though these have 2 instructors, when we pay them, if they don't have more than 24 students, they split the one person pay. The only time we pay for 2 instructors is if they have more than the 24 students as for that class. So Mindful Educator Part 2, if you are okay with that, thumbs up.
Thumb up.
Thanks, Pat. And then the last 2, I'm going to go ahead and do those 2 together. Using Grantwood AEA online resources for K-5 instruction and for 612 instruction. And those are being taught by Michelle Cruzy, who is teacher librarian at Roosevelt. And any questions about that one? Okay, if you're in favor, thumbs up.
Thumb up.
All right, you guys make my life easy. Those are all approved. I will get that to Ryan Reedstrom and have them start working on those classes. I'm not sure if they're going to get them. I'm assuming it's for the fall, but we'll see. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you guys thought we should have brought up or that we need to add to a future agenda?
Tanya, if they have a chance, the technology one with like book flicks and all those things.
Yes.
If there's I know that it's tough, but man, that would be nice to have that before the fall.
I was thinking that exact same thing. And then in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, that's only 3 weeks out. I will touch base. I'm assuming that this teacher librarian has kind of already been kind of working on it.
Right.
But it would be great, even if they could get it out to do, in August before school starts or.
Right.
Yeah.
I just think as a teacher that, it sounds great now. And then once the school year's starting and I'm in the middle of it, then,
It's harder. Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. I will put that in the notes, and I will also let Ryan and even maybe reach out to Michelle and see if there's a way that we can get that offered a little sooner. So.
Cool.
All right. I think just thank you guys for all being a part of this, and especially my teachers. Thank you for being here all the time. I appreciate you guys so much. If any of you are, thinking that you're maybe ready to move on, I hate to even give you the opportunity, but if you are, let me know. And that way I have time to kind of look for someone new to fill shoes for next year. So, but thank you guys, and have a great rest of the year and a great evening. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone.